I'm only gonna tell you this once.
That is now your chair, Captain.
My friends, the great experiment.
The greatest trick. Hidden trick.
Would you look at that?
The greatest trick.
And you people, you're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek.
The greatest trick.
Welcome to Greatest Trek. It's a new Star Trek podcast from the makers of The Greatest Generation. I'm Adam Pranica.
I'm Ben Harrison.
It's an off-season episode. Let's introduce our guest. From screen, from stage, from college auditorium, from YouTube.
Oh, that's sewer.
From all over the place, he's Adam Ragusea. He's, you know what, I buried the best credit of all. Friend to me and Ben.
Yeah.
Friend for a long, long time, Adam Ragusea. Welcome to the show.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you
Why
for
are
Best
being
friends
friends.
forever.
Why do you put up with us? First question, Knoxville.
I was actually trying to remember that because I remember there was one point really early on in Greatest Gen existing that you came and stayed at my apartment in New York, the Goose. And I don't remember how we knew each other well enough at that point for me to be like, yeah, you can sleep in my apartment.
It's hard to imagine the Goose ever going through a hard time and then needing a place to crash. And for that and for him to be that desperate to crash at your place, Ben.
Right there, that's the privilege of a man who's that tall. That he can just invite other men to his house without first assessing whether he can best them in battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could probably best him in battle.
I think that we must have met either through Cyrus Farivar, good friend to all of us, good friend to everyone,
Yeah.
or through Jesse Thorne, another good mensch of mensches, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think, there was some kind of orbit there. And I was listening to the show from the beginning because I read Cyrus's article about it. As many people, that's how many people got on board. And then I think that all you had for music at that point was Dark Materia. And no one knew if Dark Materia was a noun or a verb or plural, singular, gendered in what way. No one knew what a dark materia is or how to reach a dark materia.
We did exchange emails with Dark Materia very early on. I think we were probably right before the Ars Technica article dropped. We were like, hey, we should probably make sure it's cool that we're using this music on this podcast we weren't expecting anyone to listen to. And somehow we found their email and emailed them, and they sent back a one line go for it, go sick, I don't care.
Yeah, you make sure you get the timeline right on that, buddy.
Yeah.
Goose, it looks like you're recording from your grow operation.
My grow operation, I know.
How is it going in the greenhouse?
It's the best. I've not yet shown it to any people in my audience, but I guess.
Cool.
Are we going to be available to the people on home video on your channel?
We are making
episode?
history live on videotape today.
Okay, all right, videotape and laser discs. Got it. Okay.
If you're uncomfortable with this, we can just say it's a green screen.
No. It does. You know what? Because I tried to get fucking professional. I put a backlight on me, right? So check that out there.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's making me look green screened because it's giving me a rim, a rimlet thing that I thought would make me look like the submarine in the other submarine movie that we like, not Hunter Red October.
Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide.
One of the most difficult things you can do is give yourself a rim, but I think you look great over there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. But speaking of this space and of particular interest to your viewers and listeners, and maybe I'll give you guys a shot of this to edit in for home video, is I put in a fish tank. I did an improvised, in a cattle trough, right? So I improvised a fish tank, and I put the filter and the air stones and the pumps and everything I was able to put under the floorboards, so you don't hear anything. All you hear is the burbling in here.
That's nice.
So I'm growing aquatic plants in there, and then I've got room
You
for
doing
some fish,
aquaponics?
so I'm doing aquaponics, and so I've got some room for some fish in there. And they, there's one there now named Gracie, and then there will be another named George.
Of course.
And I've got the sign from the bus on the side of the fucking trough, which was really hard to do because when that, see George and Gracie, have a whale of a good time in Sausalito Aquarium, right? Like when that appears on the side of the bus in Star Trek 4, it's in like really deep perspective. So I had to like learn how to because now you can like read perspective images really easily in Photoshop, but I didn't know how to do that. So I had to like stretch this shit around and then you can still kind of tell that like the left side of it was behind the focal plane a little bit, but it still looks pretty badass. But the reason I mentioned all of that was that it's like I sent it to signs.com or whatever. Hashtag not necessarily signs.com. I sent it to signs.com or what have you or similar concern, and they wrote back and they were like, we can't print this. This is like kind of blurry and it won't look good.
Since when is Science.com concerned about how good it looks?
We've never gotten that kind of pushback from the company that makes all the stuff on podshop.biz. They're happy to put no matter what crappy idea on a t-shirt.
I'm not even trying to fucking make merch out of it. Or like I would understand if they actually wanted to make sure that their brand wasn't going to be on like a shitty t-shirt. I would actually understand that. But this is like one-time personal purchase. And I was like, why? And they were like, it's going to look blurry. And I was like, it's going to look blurry because it was in deep perspective in the movie and I had to flatten it out. And so the left side of it was kind of behind the focal plane. And then after it was like a half an hour of discussing that with like the human in India or the AI. I couldn't figure out which it was, helping me out here. And eventually and I was just like, look, it's my money. I'm not going to blame you. It's okay. And to my surprise, they relented. I kind of thought that this was just this was the administrative level of hell that I'd been consigned to, But no, they kind of relented and they print, and it looks fucking bitchin'. It looks so good, this sign.
Strong work by the trustedsignprinter.com people at the end of the day.
Way to take your money.
But your use of the term behind the focal plane sort of leads us to one of the topics we wanted to talk about today.
You know the greatest danger facing us is an irrational fear of the unknown. Unknown.
Black alert.
Unknown.
Black alert.
We all have one way or another found ourselves behind a camera and over the course of our careers, and we all grew up watching Star Trek: The Next Generation and etc. And you actually had this pitch, Goose, like talking about the ways Star Trek made us think about cinematography before we maybe even knew what cinematography was. And I think that's a great topic for us because we love nerding out about film crap.
Yeah, and you guys actually kind of don't do it as much as you used to. It was a hallmark of early TGG and associated media properties, because I think you guys, your heads were still very much in the space of doing production. Back when you were independent video, you were varying degrees of independent, as I recall at the time.
Yeah.
But semi-independent video creators doing mostly corporate videos, what you guys were doing, and you love to nerd out about the technical stuff, and maybe it was a bit of a crutch. You hadn't fully found that part of yourself that reviews Star Trek for a living while making of the dicketh and the farteth. Like that thing, whatever you want to call it, had not fully been developed and birthed into the world at that point. And so you were falling back on doing kind of, tech geek kind of talk, But I miss a lot of the tech geek talk.
We've definitely seen that in our Apple Podcast reviews. These guys used to talk about cinematography. Now they're just drunk idiots.
You're many orders of magnitude bigger than our show. How do you deal with your reviews?
I do not read them ever.
That's the
Can't-
policy.
I had to cut myself off.
Yeah.
I was very conscious that like that's how you get Stalin, you know, when cults of personality are formed and the leader becomes isolated, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like,
a lot of people
I
don't know
need-
Adam Ragusea quietly has a bigger body count than Hitler, you know?
That's right. I tried to read the stuff early on because I thought you don't want to get cut off from reality. But reality was just too brutal. And it was just eating my life. And so I had to completely get out of the game.
The game sucks. You know, like there's a total duality to it. We had visits to Vegas for the Star Trek convention pretty recently, and
you got to come with us to that sometime.
You really do.
Do I?
Yeah.
Vegas?
Yeah.
Do I?
Vegas is of very little use to me personally as a place or a thing, and I love it. And it was like it's especially fun for me and Adam because we're like there hanging with Friends of DeSoto, with people who listen to our show, which is not something that we get to do at an extended clip very often. You know, like sometimes we'll have a meet and greet at a show or like a one-on-one, but they're always brief. Like they're inherently brief because if it's happening on tour, we've got to, you know, pack up and get to the hotel so that we can get up early in the morning. And having like long, like actual human interactions with people that like the thing that we make was so great this year, especially. And
Puts gas in the tank, man.
It does, but also recall that FODs are not just anyone's FOD. Okay, they're not your father's FOD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, today's FODs are really special people, and you guys get lucky, you know. Although I will say, I think I'm realizing something, which is that since I have transitioned away, I used to do way more videos on YouTube than I do now, and I do way fewer. But I added a podcast that I do every week. That, you know, is insignificant in its audience compared to the videos. The videos are what pay for the whole operation, but the podcast has its audience. Mm-hmm. And what I'm realizing is I feel like that my pod audience, as it has coalesced, also as the show has sort of become whatever the fuck the show is, the audience I feel like is more similar to your audience, where it's like it's my core people. Like podcasting is a medium, I think, because discoverability is so shitty for podcasts and always will be shitty for podcasts. What that creates is a little bit more of a dedicated bond between the audience and the content creator. And so what you have is more of a core only business model with podcasting. Whereas on YouTube, I have like Core Plus, where I've got the like 50,000 people that will, you know, watch or listen to anything that I do. But beyond that, I have to.
And also
earn.
Showtime, like for some reason. That's how that works.
That's right, exactly. Which means that at certain times of day you can see boobs.
Right. That's such an interesting distinction, like the difference between a podcast audience and a YouTube audience. Do you have a name for them? Like we have FODs.
My sort of tagline is vinegar legs on the right. I tried to call them vinegar leggets, which I thought worked on a few levels.
Yeah, that's
but,
fun.
you know, much to my surprise, didn't really catch on.
Wow.
But it's the kind of thing. It's like if the audience I'd started with was my core audience, then I think that probably would have worked. But because I was in the Core Plus business model, shit like that just didn't fly. Yeah.
Do you ever get the chance to in person with them the way Ben and I have been able to?
I am of a level of internet fame where I do get recognized in person most times I go out.
That's great. Or not.
It's very not great. I want people to know if you're an Adam Ragusea super fan and you would come up to me at the grocery store or something, please know that like I'm not mad at you. And I don't think you're doing anything wrong by coming up and saying, "Hi, I love your work." Like, you're doing nothing wrong. That's what you're supposed to do. It's a me problem that still makes me deeply uncomfortable, right? That is my fault.
Right.
That like there's this like, guy at my gym who sort of, did a very friendly and polite, pleasure to know you thing, This was Gym Bro protocol followed to a letter, right? And said he was a fan. I said, "Oh, that's great." But like, because I go there and he goes there, now I have to negotiate the fact that he and I theoretically know each other. And like, am I gonna do the acknowledgement when I walk by him? Am I not gonna do the acknowledgement? Am I gonna try to avoid it's awful. I fucking hate it. It's like, I kind of almost want to get a different gym over it, which is again, that is like a me problem. Dude, if you're listening, that is not a you problem. Please do not feel bad. You have done nothing wrong. That's all me. But it still fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I don't like being famous is terrible. It's just bad. And I think that like, I'm realizing that like, this is why we're consigned to the hell that we are consigned to, where the only people who want to be famous are awful people.
It's like running for office, right?
It's people with narcissistic personality disorder or sociopaths.
Yeah.
And that's it pretty much, Those are the only people who want it. And it's, if you're if you're any shade of normal, not awful person, even a slight little bit of fame feels kind of awful. Yeah.
Well, fortunately for us, fame was thrust upon us. We were not the thrusters.
You guys took it. You took it like a champ, though. Especially because it was Klingon, so it was a double, and you guys just lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
Right.
Dan Savage always says, "Do your homework," and that's really the key to success.
That's what Ben said early on. He was like, "We're gonna get Star Trek famous. Now we're Star Trek famous. We have been Star Trek famous." And that's what made the whole experience so pleasurable.
We live by the adage DTMFA, do Trek media fun already.
Yeah, that's famous.
You know the greatest danger facing us is an irrational fear of the unknown.
Let's fly.
The uncertainty.
Let's steer back to cinematography. I had a jazz gummy and a bunch of rum before we started this. I feel like I'm like the most on.
I feel like we're in a driver's ed car with 3 steering wheels somehow.
Yeah.
I have jazz gummied too, but I'll drive your show if you need me to.
I love that idea.
I'm kind of curious to hear like why that idea came up for you, Goose. Like when we were texting about like what we could do if we all got on mics together today. This idea came from you, and I definitely can think of some things that I learned about cinematography from Trek, and that like Trek forced me to be curious about as a kid when I didn't know what cinematography was. But yeah. I'm curious to hear from you what those things are.
I'm guessing that Pranika's experience is similar, and mine is going to be the odd person's out because I'm so not a visual thinker, like it's just not important to me. Visuals ever really have been, and I didn't pay attention to cinematography at all watching movies when I was a kid. And then when I had a video job thrust upon me, I had to learn and learn really fast. And you guys helped me a lot along the way. But I reached back into my memory bin for sort of Star Trek knowledge, as I have over many points in my broadcasting career. I mean, I remember my first radio job when I was a classical music announcer at WFIU in Bloomington, Indiana. I remember thinking, this script I've been handed feels really stupid. Like, this is not, none of these words are words that a person would say. But what I was like, it is my job. They bring me in here to do a job. And what I thought of Captain Picard. I thought about how J.L. Pipes would just commit to the most serious man in the world, the most serious actor in the world would commit to that ridiculous fucking technobabble. Honestly, first 2 seasons, all bets are off with all dialogue. It was all ridiculous. Yeah. And how he threw the force of Shakespeare behind it without a hint of knowing winking, which would be such a fucking cop out,
Right. Or rolling his eyes at it.
Where he's really throwing his show and everyone he's working with under the bus by kind of winking at the camera to show that he knows how fucking stupid this show is. Like, he could have done that, and he did not fucking do that. Shatner did that shit all the fucking time, J.L. Pipes was a fucking professional. He committed to the bit every single fucking time. And so I remember reading my bad copy about what opera is coming up next and trying to commit to it like J.L. Pipes would. So all of that comes to now when I fall backwards into a video career, not having any knowledge or even talent or inclination toward visuals whatsoever, I had to kind of learn. And I remember thinking about Star Trek stuff. And so the first thing that came to mind is, this is my earliest knowledge of being aware that a camera did more than just show you what it looked like, that a camera would alter the reality in some way. So it was the pilot of DS9 when Commander Sisko goes to see Picard, I believe, in the conference room, right?
Yeah.
And you see a set on the Next Generation, on the D, shot for a different show, Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks really different. And I remember as a kid that striking me, and I was like, oh, what is that? How does the show look different? It's the same place. It's the same actor. How does it look different?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, guys, why do those shows look so different? They're both shot on film, right?
They're both shot on film. I think that primarily they're lit really differently, and the lighting in Deep Space Nine is so radically moody for a television show, even in that era. I remember when I was a kid watching a movie and liking watching a movie on the, VHS player, turning around and watching an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation and be like, what is it about the quality of this that is so different? And I was surprised to learn that TNG was shot on film at some point when I was a teenager, because I was like, oh, it must just be that they shoot TV on tape and that's why TV looks different from movies. And the fact that when you do a telecine where you're scanning 24 frame per second film to 30 interlaced frame per second video, it there's weird pull down things and tricks that have to be played at the microsecond level to accommodate the fact that
that's artifact that we're seeing as some kind of that sort of smoothing effect that seems to happen to the film once it gets processed into video.
Well, so when they're shooting for video, they're shooting at 30 frames per second. And when they're shooting a film, when you then go to make the VHS tape of that film, it's a complicated process with a video engineer working that pull down. And anybody who's ever tried to pull an interlaced video into a digital editing environment and seen the interlacing artifacts knows that a lot of weird fucking choices got made to make color video be transmissible over the air in the early days of television. And that stuff had knock-on effects in all of the formats that we had for a long time. And it's things like that. It's things like the way you light for television versus a film, when you know that it's going out in 540 by 480 or something around there definition, you don't usually light as moody as they lit Deep Space Nine, because people won't be able to see the stuff that's going on. You light everything super bright.
Because it'll be higher contrast.
Yeah, and you'll look as good as you can on the most different kinds of televisions, because also televisions are made by so many different manufacturers. And I mean, this is stuff that's all like after a film school's worth of education, I understand like some of it, and I understand like the basic outlines of it. But like, I remember being intensely curious about that as a kid. Like when I finished watching a tape of Star Wars and clicked over to the channel 44 broadcast of Star Trek, why do these things look as radically different as they do? And it's like is a mountain of reasons.
That scene, Goose, that you were talking about, that scene where Sisko meets Picard, I didn't really notice as much the differences in lighting or composition as much as I felt like the emotional telecine of that moment. Like,
wow,
we have our
You're
title.
saying it was all performance, and then I inferred like a different look to the shot. That's how well acted it was.
We've had years and years of Captain Picard getting react shots from everyone he's with, and getting a version of that's some kind of fawning or rank disparity or respect or whatever. And Avery Brooks looks at him in that scene like he wants to tear his head off. And that is not something as a kid I was used to seeing.
Yeah, I think they also just shot it a little darker. I mean, because one thing that I now see and I'm able to notice as being remarkable is that TNG, later season TNG, I think from about season 3-ish onward, wow, did they light shit brightly for that show. Like, that is, if you, like, I was watching a season 7 episode last night, and it looked, all the bridge shots, everybody's face, they look like they are lit up with a ring light for a L'Oreal commercial. Yeah. Like the amount of light that it takes to completely sandblast every shadow out of existence. No one has any wrinkles. There's no fine lines, nothing. You just sort of glow like an angel.
We just did our live show, The Re-Encounter at Farpoint, a couple of months ago, and revisiting the pilot, I was very much struck by how dark the pilot is. Like the pilot has mood lighting, it has spotlights, it lets the background fall off to almost jet black in certain places. Like, I mean, talk about the battle bridge, that place is scary as hell.
Yeah, I know, exactly. But the I don't know why they ended up opting for such a bright look as they went, but there are several effects of it, one being that it made the Enterprise such a friendly, happy place to be.
Yeah.
Which is like the main thing that I miss in most other Trek, that this isn't a scary place, that it's not they made a big thing out of it. This is not a ship of war. This is a place where there's a kindergarten here. Yeah. There's a fucking kindergarten here, right? Like, it's a city.
Sir, can you please leave the kindergarten if you're going to keep yelling, there's a fucking kindergarten here?
Sorry. It's the kind of thing, like, I feel like none of the other set designers or production designers, like, or the people who do this on, I don't know. I feel like they're not thinking about, is this a ship? Have we talked about, is this a ship where families live? Right? Like, and if it is a ship where families live, like, what the fuck are we doing with the lighting in these corridors? Yeah.
People don't live in this leather bar.
Are we trying to traumatize these children? Like, what the fuck? And also, like, human beings are not going to want to live in conditions like this for years at a time. It wouldn't look like that. It would look much brighter and more enjoyable, at least during, solar day years.
I think Pike's Enterprise is the one version of new Star Trek that is lit brighter, more like early season TNG. Like the fact that Pike's Enterprise has a white floor, I think, does a lot of the work.
Yeah, it could be that simple.
We need to score a lot of laps fast.
We're licensed businessmen.
That is now your chair, Captain.
It's a new show.
Can we talk a little bit about the music you're working on for our coverage of Star Trek: Enterprise?
Oh, wow. I'm stuck back at colon, but we don't want to spoil it, right? Okay, so we're not
no spoilers.
No spoilers. It's
not a spoiler to say that we're working on that.
It's a totally different approach, okay?
It's going to be divisive, I think.
Dark Materia, we thank Dark Materia for Dark Materia's long and generous service. But this is sort of going to be an approach that's not inspired by Dark Materia. It is a little bit more faithful to the source material. We're staying a little closer to the text. Because it's just...
What does it mean?
When the text is that good, you just want to trust... You just want to trust this guy, or this lady, Diane Warren, the composer of the text in question. One of the great songwriters of all time, Diane Warren.
Wow, the internet sleuths have figured this out.
Her lyrics are written in red. That's how you know that she's the one saying them, right?
In certain sects, I think.
There's things about the upcoming new theme music for Greatest Gen that I still don't know. I don't know what your guys' approach is going to be in terms of how it could potentially be rendered or who could be rendering it.
Yeah.
I hope to God it's someone other than me.
Well, the last time we collaborated on a music project, it was for the new music for Greatest Trek. And maybe we could talk about that experience as a project. I think we went through a couple of versions of that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The way we have frequently done something together has been like, we'll give you a couple notes before you begin, you'll take them and run with it, and then we'll just sort of bounce versions back and forth. Sure,
yeah. So let me catch people up. This will be the very short version about how we sort of got to that point in our process. So this podcast in your feed right now, The Greatest Trek, started off as a show called The Greatest Discovery, when they launched the Star Trek Discovery program, and you guys weren't sure if you should have a new feed for that. You went with, yes, let's have a new feed for that, which I'm sure is a decision that you regretted at times and rejoiced in others. A lot of rejoicing now that there's so much new Trek, but then there's there's the strikes. So there's the strikes, so you guys might be screwed again. But anyways, we stand with labor. Solidarity, 100%.
Friends of DeSoto for labor.com.
So anyway, you guys needed a theme, like a kind of a Dark Materia style theme about this new Star Trek show called Star Trek Discovery for your podcast. And I was like, how do we do that? Because the show had not yet come out and you guys weren't yet famous enough that you were getting screeners, which, thank the gods you are now.
I think it's not about us being famous. I think they just loosened up who gets screeners. I think kind of a lot of people get them now.
I think Diane Warren. I think she's responsible somehow.
Whether you had to push harder or if they just had to loosen it up, the result was achieved either way.
Yeah.
What we had was the trailer for Star Trek Discovery. And so I was like, okay, could I try to make a theme out of this, which not only has very little dialogue in it, it also, because it's for a trailer, there's like very loud scoring behind all of it, and whenever there's scoring behind the dialogue that I want to use, that creates enormous problems. It boxes me in terms of chord changes that I can do and all that.
Yeah.
It also was the case that, that trailer was bad and it made the show look bad. And a lot of the dialogue that was in that trailer actually isn't even in the show. It was like stuff from earlier cuts that didn't even make it, And it was all just supremely goofy. And so the best thing I could come up with was to I just kept hearing, Captain Picard saying like, what the fuck is this? In response to shit that, that disco characters were saying, and I feel so kind of ashamed about it now because, I love what that show became, and the actors on it. My Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
the notion that we got to touch Michelle Yeoh's toe as she ascended to superstardom.
I know.
Is pretty amazing. That's pretty incredible that we got to taste a little bit of that fairy dust on her way up to the fucking top where she belonged.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I made this kind of goofy music where it was these TNG characters making fun of these new disco characters, and it was like a fun gag, and I was actually really proud of the music. I thought musically, my approach to dealing with all of the crazy background music was to do a more kind of atonal thing harmonically that would give me a little bit more latitude, so it's a little more bleep bloopy, harmonically speaking. And it ended up being really kind of goofy and fun. And then the best part is like toward the end of it, and it always bothered me so much that you guys never played it, but I could never imagine being the kind of person who would say something about it. But it was always this continuous source of disappointment to me that I think Robs, who was editing the show at the time, never used it. That theme goes really high BPM toward the end. It goes like really kind of trancy. Mm-hmm. And I did this thing where I did the "You don't deserve to wear that uniform" thing in the same way that Dark Materia did it, which is really that rhythm is not in. It's not in the line. A lot of these other lines, the rhythm is in them,
right.
Inextricably. That one, he or she had to cut really creatively in order to get that beautiful rhythm, and I was able to do that, and therefore have this like thing that was a text that was referencing a text that was referencing how a text referenced a text. And it was I loved that. And I was so proud of that. And you guys never played it. So fuck you, Robs. But anyways, so that was that. And it served the show well enough. But I think we were all kind of unhappy with how that theme music made fun of the show, right? It made fun of Star Trek Discovery. We didn't like that. And we also didn't like that it made fun of disco in exactly the wrong way to make fun of disco. Like disco is not a perfect series, made a lot of really bad choices. There's things to make fun of with disco, but like the gatekeepery shit, the "that's not my Star Trek" shit was just the worst.
Right.
And the theme that we came up with, really, I shouldn't pin this all on you. The theme that I came up with.
It's you and Rob.
Let's blame it on Rob.
Get him, Adam.
Rob's came up with. It wasn't gatekeepery humor, but it was unfortunately like harmonious. It resonated unfortunately with gatekeepery bullshit
in an unintended kind of way, I think.
Absolutely, 100%.
It was pointed out several times, and in several ways that was an inference someone could make based on, like, if they gave a really close reading to what wound up being the lyrics of that song.
Dislike, downvote, yeah. So you guys, wanted me to sort of do something, and two things were happening. One was it was when all these news Trek shows were coming online, and it was just like, God, which characters do we feature? Who's going to be the exciting Trek character this week that you're going to want in your theme song 5 years from now?
Right, and how do we make it a song that can accommodate like the shows that we don't even know are happening yet?
That are going to exist, yeah, exactly. So we had no good solution to that question. And at the same time, it was also the case that my career was taking off, and you guys were like super encouraged. You guys were my biggest cheerleaders, and
I wanted a ride on that rocket ship.
So yeah, I didn't have time to make a better theme song for you guys, and we also didn't know how to do it, even if I did have the time, right? So eventually, you guys were like, sure you were going to do this, relaunch the show, rebrand it as Greatest Trek, and I was not going to fuck this up for you this time. So I committed to giving you guys a theme, and the plan that we came up with that I thought was good was to not really have many of new Trek voices in the theme, have it all be classic OG original cast, maybe a little bit of Greatest Gen, but what they're doing is saying things about the future.
Yeah.
And trying to find dialogue that would be an antidote to gatekeepery Trek Trek bullshit, where they're talking about how the greatest Trek is yet to come, how I'm delighted to look forward to what the future holds, and because those are defining foundational themes of Star Trek, it's not hard to find dialogue where our beloved original characters are articulating that foundational point of view that all the fucking Trek gatekeepers have forgotten.
Even if the context for those moments is awkward or weird. Like, one of my favorite parts of the Greatest Trek theme is what you did with Old Man McCoy's She'll Always Take You Home. Like, that is the most smooth delivery and that composition. Like, when that interstitial comes up and I'm driving, I'm even more chill of a driver.
Yeah.
Wherever I am. That is just a great moment in that composition.
No, and I think that it's like it responds to a way in which Trek sort of teaches you to like how to be a fan of it, because I've always said not my Star Trek, and it's because I don't believe that the best Star Trek show has yet been made. Oh!
Hey! You fucker.
How long were you holding onto that mic under the desk?
I found the mic nearby. Yeah, I was thinking, hey, we're making a video thing. We should do a couple of video gags, you know?
That was big fun. See, Goose, you could learn something from that kind of physical comedy showmanship.
Yeah, I know. Not my forte.
I think the biggest comedy reveal was the fact that I'm wearing these ridiculous shorts.
Them chubbies? You got some chubbies? You got them chubs?
I'm wearing Nantucket Reds with little whales embroidered all over them.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Lean into the prep, Harrison. Lean into the fucking prep. Get a fucking sailboat. Get it.
I want a sailboat so
Fucking
bad.
sailboat.
I live on the east side, man. I never go to the water.
Yeah. The best you can do is the Swan Paddler at Echo Park Lake.
Will you vacation on Nantucket with me?
Oh, I'm there.
Am I invited too, or is that just Ben?
Yes, you can. You can, but we both want to. It's mostly about watching what Ben does, right? Like that's the promise of the premise.
Cape, Vineyard, or Nantucket. I'm happy to do any and all of. I will eat all of the lobster rolls. I will bake all of the clams.
None of that lobster is sustainable this year, says seafoodwatch.org, so don't do that.
Fuck.
Oh, bummer.
But also stop talking about that the minute you enter New England. Like that's an understanding that we have to get between ourselves now before the plane lands at Logan, okay?
Well, I do not want a fucking Boston sports fan who riding on me for saying the wrong thing.
That is now your chair, Captain.
It's a new ship.
How did we know we had the Greatest Trek theme when it was done? Was that just one of those things where a deadline tells you when you're done, or did we know we had it?
I wanted it to have carry over some musical identity from the previous theme, the Greatest Discovery theme. A, for continuity, and B, because musically I just liked that one. Yeah. So I had that kind of goofy little figure. And when I found a way to make that silly ass theme, that figure, sound kind of grand enough to work in the context of kind of an uplifting and hopeful orchestral Trek-y sounding theme, that's when I felt like I had found the right idea to then work out and send to you guys.
I love how modular it is. I love how it works for the different shows in the different ways it works for them. Like tonally, these shows are all so different, and I feel like our theme is fun alongside all of those tones, whatever thing we're about to talk about. So, we feel awful lucky to have the musical director of Uxbridge Shimoda be somebody as awesome as you, Goose.
And fortunate to count you as a friend, man. We really love you, and we're glad to have you not just as an FOD, but as a real life friend of ours. So glad you're there.
Well, boys, so maybe now is a good time to broach a difficult topic. So you understand that as much as you depend on me, I depend on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the shows that you make, that's like, did your dad have like his one thing that he paid attention to that he never let go of throughout his whole life? You know, his one magazine that he never stopped reading.
Right.
Like for my dad, still it's Time magazine. That man will not give up Time magazine. Right.
Wow.
Just because it's too important of a thing in his life. Like he just couldn't. I don't know what I think he doesn't know how he would get himself to sleep without his Time magazine.
Does it look like it's too thick to be a Time magazine, and maybe there's another magazine inside? Time.
Serve him right for all of his intrusions into my business in that regard.
What the hell? You've been reading Harper's Bazaar the whole time?
So I don't know, like Greatest Gen and Greatest Trek, these programs are baked into the cake of my life. I don't know what I would do with various times of my life. Yeah, you could not. It's in my, it's part of my collective. To extricate it would be like asking one of us to cut off an arm or a foot. We couldn't do it.
Tremendous.
These programs can never die as long as until I do, really, is what it boils down to. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you're proposing some sort of suicide cult?
no. It may come to that, but hopefully we're a few revolutions from that. So if you guys, I don't know if you guys were thinking about whether or not your audience would tolerate you guys watching all of Star Trek Enterprise and then watching all of the original series and then rotating back around to do TNG again.
Oh yeah, that I want to do that. That's
See,
the end of the line.
Just have confidence that we are 100%. I speak for the entire board. Okay, the entire union is behind me on this. Okay. As the union representative on the board of Uxbridge Shimoda, I, Adam Ragusea, give you our full faith in authorization that you continue the mission over again for at least one additional revolution.
I absolutely live for rewatching TNG.
Yeah,
Oh,
I want to
thank
do that.
God. I was so afraid that you guys were going to be like, oh, we just want to like move on with our lives, and it's just we don't want to get typecast,
No, I'm handcuffed to the radiator that is this show.
Okay.
And,
thank God.
There's just a dull hacksaw and a filthy toilet next to me for the rest of my life.
And you know that you can watch all of the original series, even though you've covered a lot of original series episodes on The Greatest Trek. That's fine. Over in TGD, you can do a full honest to God watch of the original series.
We need to do it sequentially. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
In that earlier metaphor, Adam, am I the dull hacksaw or am I the dirty toilet?
What do you want to be?
And which one's the goose?
Well, the realtor says that you always want to be the hacksaw, right?
Sure.
But you'd rather have the dirty toilet. So I kind of feel like, there's more to life. There's more to life than resale value is all I'm saying, lady. Okay. It's not an investment. I'm going to fucking live in it. All right. Thinking about your home as an investment is what got us into this fucking mess.
Is this a new shirt for us? This is like...
It's the emojis of handcuffs, radiator, hacksaw, dirty toilet. There's a dirty toilet emoji, right?
Yeah.
Kind of realtor looking lady?
Adam Ragusea, where can people find you?
Oh, I'd rather they didn't.
Yeah.
I'm honestly as famous as I want to be. I'd be fine having no additional.
Your credits include the theme song to Greatest Trek. And the theme song to...
I wrote the Kirk song for all of your tour spots. That's an underrated Ragusea composition. I think people wanted to listen to that one a little bit more. I think I did a good job on that one. The Kirk song.
You got us Santa Monica Mountains. You rounded that into shape, didn't you? Or did you just teach me how to auto-tune my own voice? I know you were instrumental in me sounding that specific way.
I gave you guys a mix on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I would listen to that. I would listen to that for fun.
Yeah.
It's a great track. Hot track.
When we were in Vegas, we went to karaoke, and Pranica and I did a rendition of the original Baywatch theme.
With the lyrics from the show or from your show?
We couldn't do it off the top of the dome from our show, so we did the lyrics
Oh,
from the
yeah.
show.
You needed the bouncing ball.
Yeah.
Some people need... I love how he goes, to help somebody. To help. It's like he needs a
James
he needs
Brown,
like a HEPA filter.
Jimmy Jameson's a
Some
cat.
people need to help somebody.
Yeah, just surrenders inside.
All right, I'll cut it off there.
Goose, we love you tons, man. We'll have you back on the show soon because it's strike season and we're not doing new programming for a bit.
All right. Thank you for tuning into a special YouTube presentation of Greatest Trek. Really fun to have the great Adam Ragusea on the show, and thanks to Rob Adler, who has been editing a lot of this video stuff for us lately and doing a great job.
Yeah, love his work.